Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com, the premier dealership and parts and accessory source for your Vespa scooter here in North America. Find us on the web, ScooterWest.com. Let's get right to it. So you probably already know what this video is all about. You got a North American Primavera or Sprint. You got these little bobble ears on here. So what's the reason why they put these on here? It's because the turn signals that were intended for the scooter are just a little bit too narrow, I think by a ½ inch. So a lot of prior models, they never had to have the pods, but Primavera and Sprint, they engineered it where it's just slightly narrower on the leg shield, gives it that nice, sexy European look. Well, here at ScooterWest.com and Vespa Motorsport, I prefer the sexy look, and I think you will as well. So here we got a 2024 or later Primavera or Sprint. It's got the newer LED turn signals, and normally they're just running lights just like that. Get rid of the pods and get those nice European turn signals installed. I'll show you how to return your Primavera or Sprint to its former European bellissimo glory. So let's get right to it. All right, so what's included with the Scooter West kit? So the part number on this is MI200-PR 2024. And the way you know if this kit will fit your scooters, in 2024 they made a transition to this style new glove box. It's got this solid black plastic, and it's got the new techier dashboard that's shared with the 2023 and later GTS. Looks a lot different than the prior models. If you have the small LCD screen that's not black, this kit's not going to work. You're going to want to go with one of the previous generations of the MI200 PR kits. Find them on the Scooter West web store. So some years 2024 and later, all 2025s and 2026s so far use this kit. So includes a brand new Euro style rear fender with no holes in it. You have a couple plugs, a couple clips, a set of zip ties, a set of specific crimp terminals. They're like a Tyco amp part. You got the wire seals, includes the LED bulb for the license plate light, and that's optional. And this is an LED compatible turn signal flasher that we'll install. So it's all you need. Just kind of watch through the whole video before you do this job. It's definitely a more complicated job to install, but totally doable for anybody that's handy with tools. And the best part of it is you're not chopping any of the wires on the scooter. It's the last thing I'd ever want to do on my new scooters, chop up the factory wiring harness. We're just gonna reuse some connections and make some new connections to enable the whole LED set. An optional item to add is the clear turn signals for the rear. So that would make it 100% pure Euro style, not having the red lenses. I kind of like the red lenses on some colors. Kind of gives it like an American look. So what's included with the scooter is the red lenses, but we also have the clear lenses as an optional add-on. So this is a little bit higher level of a do-it-yourself job. Need a few more tools, and they're critical for the successful installation. Microfiber rag, that's always a must. You're gonna need a diagonal wire cutter. These are the type where you get a lot of leverage. You need a number 1 Phillips, a number 2 Phillips driver, which is the most common size. You're gonna need both T30 and T25 Torx drivers, preferably just like these with a screwdriver. And needle nose are gonna be helpful. And last but not least, everybody has one of these, a pocket knife or a X-Acto blade. So these are the necessary tools. I'll show some other tools throughout the installation video, just make for a little bit easier installation. You may have a right angle driver with a T30 socket that helps with removing the glove box. Wire strippers aren't necessary, but they are helpful. Ones that go down to like 24, 22 gauge wire for really small wire. Not necessary, I use the pocket knife. If you're gonna install the reflector on the rear fender, you're gonna need an 8mm socket, not for the socket, but you'll see later. So just like that. And probably a tool you're not going to come across much is a flag terminal crimper. And it's kind of got that little butterfly shape in there. This is a specific crimper for repairing those terminals. There's even much higher end versions of these that I'm not going to even show in this video. And also a plastic tool trim. Tool is also helpful. Find the whole set of these on the Scooter West web store. Tool trim, pretty inexpensive. So enough talking about the tools, let's get right into it. Jump onto the rear, the easier part, then move on to the more difficult part, the front, later in the video. All right, start with the easy part, which is the rear of the scooter. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the rear fender that has these turn signals, the reflectors all on there, and in the kit is a whole brand new fender, and we'll take off the pair of deadlights and convert them. So first things first, a pair of Phillips screws that hold the license plate illumination lamp in there. One other little tip, you have the brand new fender. In one of my prior videos, I show how to bob the rear fender and move the license plate up to where the position of that reflector is. So it may be a mod you want to do if you're looking for an extra sporty look to your Primavera Sprint. So this little license plate light, pretty simple. You could disconnect the connector further up in there, but just pull the rubber bulb socket out, and I'll talk about that little bulb a little bit later. While you have the Phillips screwdriver out, it's a pair of screws on both the left and right side. They also have a washer. Take your T30 Torx driver, pair of fasteners that hold the rear fender to the body in the center here. Last one, go ahead and support the whole assembly, and you're going to be prepared. It's just hanging from the wires, and that's fine for right now. Back to the Phillips screwdriver. I have a pair of screws that hold these dead lamps in place. Perfect opportunity if you want to put black screws in there. Those are number 6 self-tapping screws. They're actually a 1/2 inch long, about 12 millimeters. I'm using a magnetic tray right there, kind of trap all the components. And if you look under here, you can see the bulb socket already in place in these deadlights. So pull this out, you see the bulb in there. This little connection actually slides right into there. You're going to find a single zip tie holding that turnstile connection. You can see the fender drop down. And then go ahead and lift up on that tab, and that separates the connector. Just to get it out of the way for right the moment. Back onto this connector. This is your left turnstile connector with the pink wire. If you turn the connector around, you're going to see the tiniest little tab. And if you have any nails, which I don't have much of any, but go ahead and lift that little tab. What I'll do it with my knife, just so you can see what I'm doing. So go ahead and lift that little tab and just pull the connector away. And you'll find the wire is actually trapped by a little clip up in here, about right here. Then separate the wire just like that. So onto the right lens. All the same steps. Clip that zip tie. Pull the tab on the deadlight connector. Pull this up, flip it around where you see the tab, and very carefully lift it either with your knife or a fingernail, and it pulls right out. Now you have this assembly. Behind here is going to be a few nuts that hold the actual plate bracket. So we'll take the plate frame off, pretend it has a plate. Nice brand new Officina Auto. It's a nice beautiful scooter that kind of combines some sporty aspects with some very nice classy contemporary design. That's my thought on the scooter. Pretty hard to get as of September 2025. We do have this one right now. And you're gonna have little screws holding these 3 positions. I already got 2 of them out. And go ahead, separate the nut. There's gonna be a flat washer and a split washer. So set those all aside before we put the new plate frame on, we'll put that onto the new mud flap. Nice thing about this kit, it comes with a new mud flap. You don't have a bunch of holes in it. So we do want to salvage these wiring harnesses out of the turn signals. So I have a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. Remove the single screws holding these ugly pod lenses in place. Go ahead and pull the lens away, then pull the reflector with the bulb out. And you'll find 2 quick connects, and sometimes the tabs are a little hard. Doesn't really matter, you could just cut the wires, make it easy. And at this point, we'll carefully pull this right through. Do the same on the second position. All right, here comes the fun electrical part. So you have these 2 harnesses coming off the scooter. This is your extra bonus connector. It only has a ground lead connected, and it went to the dead light. So with only 1 wire, it's not going to do anything. You're going to need to take this little connection lock off, and you can just lift with a small knife or similar, and it just pulls right out just like that. Pretty simple. So set that little red connection lock out of the way. Moving on to the back, you're going to see there's a rubber plug plugging one of those pins. So the cool thing about this whole setup is it's completely reversible if you need to. So go ahead and push that plug out. Plug's no longer needed. 2 ways to go about it. You could actually connect just this white wire and put it right on the pin. I don't want to cut a connector off a factory harness. I'd rather sacrifice the connection from the turn signal. So we'll go ahead and plug this back in, and it doesn't matter, they're both the same. You have a pair of wires. There's 2 of them. So you can pull back this sheathing right here and just cut it. What is that? I'm leaving behind like 35 millimeters, almost 1.75 inches. So just like that, we're not cutting the factory harness. You have this black ground wire, that's not needed, so you can cut that short. And you might as well leave yourself some slack. You could cut it nice and short, so it's a little more tidy, but we'll just go ahead and zip tie it. So pretty simple. So in the kit is a wire seal, and that's what that's called, a little yellow wire seal. Go ahead and slide that onto the wire. And then go ahead, take a wire stripper that has the 20 gauge position. Nice thing if you have extra wire, if you mess up, you'll have some extra room to strip it again. For instance, say I didn't strip it right, it doesn't hurt, you can just cut. This is kind of showing you what you could do. Cut it, and we could try again. Say you don't even have wire strippers. If you do this with a small X-Acto blade, you could do it just like that as well, or a regular knife. Sometimes this insulation's pretty difficult. And don't hesitate to expose more wire than you need. We only need about 1/8 of an inch of wire. And even with the knife, you can usually get a really nice wire strip. So you see right now I have about 1/4 inch of copper exposed, copper wire. And again, having some extra length, that just gives you some room to try again. So we'll go ahead and cut it down to about 1/8 inch with the sharp set of wire cutters. Now for the tricky part. This is the connection pin that we're going to use. And there's 2 ways to go about crimping this. If you're the ultimate master tech, you'd have a flag terminal crimper like this, and I'd use the E position, or there's even a more sophisticated automated crimper that we have for production. But for a little connection that's sealed like this in low current, you can also just fold over the tangs. Maybe you have a good skills soldering wire. That'd be a perfect opportunity. You could solder that on the frontmost 2 little tangs. So I'm folding those over with a needle nose. Make sure they're really tight. And we do include 2 extra pins in the kit, just in case it pulls out. Give it a little tug. If it's still loose, you need to crimp it a little tighter. And don't even be afraid to use like a diagonal, because that's going to put a lot more pressure on the metal and make for a more positive crimp. So right now the wire is stuck in there. I cannot pull that out. So the next step, you see that the last pair of flags that are a little larger, we're going to slide our little seal, wire seal, that keeps the moisture out, and then fold both these tangs over just like that. And you don't need to squeeze them too tight, just enough to kind of bite that silicone seal, and that seal is not going anywhere. So now we have a nice positive connection. So the next step, pretty simple. You can see that there's a thicker part of this little pin. We'll have the thicker part facing up. So you have the two lock slots. It won't go in the wrong direction. So if you try it the wrong direction, it's just not going to go in. So you could try all three directions, but when it does go in, it's going to make a nice little snap. I heard that little snap in there. And now if I tug the wire, it's not pulling out. Again, if you mess up, there's some extra pins that redo the job. So now you put the locking tab in place, just like that. And we have some excess wire right here. You can use one of the included zip ties to kind of tidy that all up. It looks super factory now. So go ahead and put a little zip tie around here to kind of keep everything nice and tidy. And the cool thing is everything's sealed up just like a factory wiring. You're not doing any type of splicing, especially in the rear. If you ride this thing in the rain, you start cutting wires and splicing and using a posi lock. The problem you may have is the corrosion may get to the wire. So let's check for the magic part. So you see that little connection goes just like that. I left the battery in the scooter, so go ahead and plug that in. And let's see if our handiwork has no problems. Look at that. We got a flashing turn signal. So we're good here. Go ahead and reinstall, and we'll move on to the other side. So in the kit is a brand new Euro style rear fender. There's no holes for the reflector and the turn signal pods. There is an empty space for the reflector. Pretty simple to remove and install. So you could carefully get a diagonal pliers underneath and cut these. You want to have some pretty sharp diagonals. Alternatively, you could just use double stick tape if you break the pegs, not the end of the world, or you just not put a reflector at all there and do this sport modification. So it makes a pretty loud click because that's kind of a hard metal. Then you could pull these clips right off. There's a pair of rubber little seals to kind of keep it from vibrating. So do the same for both these. It takes a little bit of biting. I'd probably use a larger diagonal if I had one handy. And as you can see, the reflector drops right out. So set that aside. There's two more items you do want to pull off. And there are these little Tinnerman clips. So you pull both of those off. I'm just using the needle nose. That seems to work good. Or I'm at the diagonal pliers. You could use a needle nose. Just kind of get a little grab on there and pull it right out. So the rest of this thing, you can just discard it. It's probably not needed unless you really are in love with these little pods here. All right, so pretty simple. I like to get the letters on this right side up. Probably not that critical. This goes in either direction. The pair of rubber washers, and included in the kit are brand new one-way locking trim clips. So you'll find those in the kit. So I have the two clips pushed in place. I have a socket. We're not going to use a socket to drive a bolt, but it's an 8mm socket, kind of a deep one on a 3/8. And we're going to put this against something like a rag, or I have this little plastic right here. And all you got to do is push straight down with that 8mm socket. And now the reflector is locked in place. Go ahead and install the two little clips. They go only one direction. The little bit of a dome faces upwards. Go ahead and slide both those in place. It's just like that. And while you're at it, it's perfect time to install the plate frame. You don't want to do it while it's installed on the scooter because the problem is it's pretty difficult to reach between the tire and the fender to install these little washers and the nut. So before we install the fender, maybe you don't want to rock a plate. It looks really nice just like that. But we're going to install the plate frame for the North American plate. So with the original hardware that attached it to that original mud flap, go ahead and hold the screw through. And hopefully it still has all the original hardware. So a flat washer, and then a split washer, and the little nut. And you're going to need a 7mm socket, pretty tiny little socket. As you see, it's much easier to do this before you install this fender back onto the scooter. So pretty much repeat in all 3 positions. And depending on what model, you may have a little Allen key, which I think is a 2.5 or 3mm. So what I find is you don't really need the Allen key. Usually just a socket, 7mm socket is enough to tighten it. And I'm just using my finger to kind of keep the screw stationary. So I have this little wobble wrench right here, and they're all, don't need to get too crazy. It's holding this to plastic, and that little lock washer kind of holds it in place. So that's all set up. We'll just pretend that's a plate for whatever state you're in. Of course, it's the all-important Vespa Motorsport chrome license frame. Find this on the Scooter West web store. Several different license frames for our shop. Or maybe you just look for a simple one. I have a nice, elegant matte black frame that matches the rest of the scooter pretty well. That would work pretty nice. A lot of times for fasteners, I usually either like to use Torx screws that will lock the plate in place so no one will take your plate. But another good option if you're in an area where they may corrode, believe it or not, plastic fasteners, nylon fasteners work very well for the license plate. And I don't need to tighten them too much because whenever this gets sold, it will get a temporary plate. And that's all ready to install. So this goes right in the same place. Looks much nicer. I don't see any plugs like we used to do with the old ones. We have a nice, elegant, brand new factory fender here. The pair of screws that have the flat washers. Gotta bend down and get those installed. It's just like that. So before we install the license plate light, you have an option here. You can either go with the standard incandescent bulb, kind of gives like a warm glow, or you can use one of the included LED bulbs. So go ahead and pull that out if you want to use the LED bulb. Doesn't matter what direction it goes in. Before you install it, again, cycle the key. You can see that thing is extremely bright. And then take the license plate light. And typically, you can either aim it where the lights shine sideways or the set of LEDs, these kind of yellow looking things, faces down. You may just experiment, see what you like better, because you'll get different lighting effects on the plate. You can hold it in there and just turn it on, see how it lights up. That's a pretty nice light right there. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then the pair of screws that hold this in place. So hope you had fun converting the rear. Maybe that's as far as you want to go with it. But we're going to go the full 9 yards of concrete here. We're going to move on to the front. And it takes quite a bit more work to dismantle the front and convert the front turn signals. All right, on to the handlebars. I'm going to get rid of these little guys here. So this Officina Otto has these beautiful plugs. You can buy these as a spare part if you do want to do bar end mirrors. There's the regular mirror holes right here, if you're curious. If you have the mirrors on there, you could typically get the handlebar cover out without that interfering. You're gonna have a pair of screws for the headlight rim, so both on the right side and the left side. Then moving right into center position, right next to where the turnstile pod is this kind of difficult wide screw. You need to put some pressure on it, is what I find. To get it, for some reason, these ones are always really tight. So you want to have a really nice, good number 2 Phillips driver to get this screw out. It's kind of got the larger head on it. And then the last fastener. A lot of times you want to turn the turn signal or turn the handlebars so you can access this from the rear. This one's never all that tight, even though it's the longer of all 3 screws that we pulled out, or 6 screws. And my experience is those get caught in there, so I give it a little love tap. It pops right out. Now the headlight rim. Sometimes this could be tricky, so I'm lifting it up and pushing down on the center of the plastic of the handlebar cover right here. So if you're on a Sprint model, it's pretty much the same. And if you're very careful, you can pull this trim ring out, make sure the clips don't get left behind, because they sometimes snag and then you end up pulling the clips off. So just a little tip for you. Just pull this up. It does have some locking tabs. Without the mirrors there. And optional step, you're going to lose your clock settings, but you can, as long as the ignition's off, we can go ahead and pull the single connector that's for the dashboard. So it's got a locking tab on it, and you sometimes got quite a few pins on it, so I'm wiggling it as I'm holding this little locking tab right here. So we're into the handlebar covers. It's not too complicated in here. You got a headlight connector, you got a left turn signal connector, and a right turn signal connector. And these little connections are secured to the handlebars with the zip ties. So go ahead and cut both the left and the right turn signal zip tie connections. So go ahead and pull the lens off with your number 1 Phillips screwdriver, just like how we did on the rear. Pretty much the same like pod housing as the rear here. I don't really care about this thing that much, so if you break it, oh well. Pull the lens off, pull the reflector out, and there's the pair of wires. Disconnect, disconnect. And the wiring kind of goes through this little tunnel right here. So a lot of times I like to push it down, pull the wiring through, and then pull the wires up through the tube right here. So the next part, we want to get rid of these pods right here. So they're not all that tight. I just find usually the needle nose, you could break them free just like that. Not enough room to get a 17mm wrench in there. Let's go ahead and spin this off. You have the nut, then you're gonna have, kind of make sure it doesn't fall into the body of the scooter here. And then just carefully pull this down out of the way. It doesn't matter if it's a Sprint or Primavera, it's pretty much all the same components, just one has a different shaped headlight. And the one washer kind of dropped down there, so make sure you retrieve that. It's going to end up with a rattle. A magnet would probably be a better choice, but just kind of slip with that. The other option is you could just push it right through the hole right there. We'll do the same on the left side. And there's a lot more room on this left side here. Probably could just get away with using a wrench on this side. The other side, that's a little harder with the master cylinder for the brake and extra stuff there. And pull that all off. And now the pods are out of the way. All right, I'm gonna remove the glove box. So I don't want to scratch the paint. Put a microfiber rag across the floorboard body. Turn the key switch to the first position. We'll open the glove box. Now go ahead and remove the key. And we'll take our T25 Torx driver, remove a couple screws in here. So there's this access cover right here. Just like that. Set the screws aside. You also need to remove this little pocket here. This is all a little bit different for the 2025 or later model Primaveras and Sprints. I retooled everything in this glove box. And this pulls right out, does have some locking tabs down on the bottom. Set the screws with that. And here is a little rubber plug. Kind of get your fingers behind it. You could typically pull it off. Now you could use a trim tool to remove this plug. Makes it a little easier. Sell those on the Scooter West web store. It's a rubber plug, but you need to kind of get in between it and start prying, and it will pop out of this hole, just like that. Set that aside. And right here you have a fuse block. You can see it's kind of loose. Use either a trim tool or a nail nose. You're going to push the tabs off to the side. And we're pulling the fuse block towards us, actually, not pushing it in. So they re-engineered that. So before they would always push in. So go ahead and tip it, and then you could shove it in through the hole. So it's got the pair of locking tabs, just like that. Nice and easy. I got a T30 Torx driver. Go ahead and remove the fasteners. And our little short stubby step screws. And the reason this is there's just not much access for a screwdriver. Get in there, it is possible. But where I will want to use the T30 Torx screwdriver is in these little corners. You may want to put a little grease on the tip of the screwdriver, or you could stick your finger in there, kind of hold the screw. You're going to have a magnetized screw to hold it. Don't want to drop it into the frame. So I'm kind of holding it. These are a little longer, so keep in mind they use a little bit longer screws on these outer pair of screws. This one's a little easier because you have the whole access panel. If you're wondering what else access in there, you can see the connector for the ABS pump. ABS system in there. Kind of like doing orthoscopic surgery right here. And there we go. And this is where you need to get a little medieval on it. So go ahead and pull the glove box away from the body. They use these new plastic clips that hold it in. They actually work better than the way they set up in the past. Before they had some metal gripper clips is what they were called. So kind of getting my fingers in here. I prefer not even use a pry tool. I don't want to mar any of the painted finishes. Get my fingers in there. And if you want to make this job really easy, you'd actually take the handlebars off, but that's a lot of work just to get the handlebars off. Get our rag kind of tucked under there so the corners of the glove box don't scrape or damage anything. Getting pretty close. There you go. It pulls away. And one of those plastic clips did fall off. See these little plastic clips? I'll put that back in place. A couple of connections you got to disconnect. So right where this button for the seat pop, go ahead and pull that straight out. There's no locking tab. I haven't tried this on the tech models that have the LCD screen, but they have even more stuff like a keyless module in here, some other Bluetooth stuff. So go ahead and you could disconnect the USB connection, and they have this handy little tab that holds that connector to the top of the glove box. So the only thing remaining is this mechanical emergency cable, and this connection for the alarm system. So it works just like the dashboard connector, and it goes into this little clip right here. And if you want to go ahead and remove the mechanical glove box connection, you can open up the glove box, get a little needle nose in here. There's the cable, and we'll pull the barrel out, and then we'll move on to the inside and just give this a nice little wiggle until it will pop out just like that. And at this point, we've completely pulled away the glove box. So a little tip for you, you can see this black panel that's not painted. There's enough room in here to put like another USB, or if you had some auxiliary light switch, it's pretty nice how they have that. So just a little tip for you if you're looking to really modify your scooter. And if these little plastic gripper clips pop off, just like this, they snap right back in place. Make sure you have all 6 positions. So go ahead and set the glove box aside. And we have these pair of harnesses. And I kind of kept them isolated, so I have the left side and the right side. So we're going to start with the left side. So go ahead and we'll route this wiring along with all the other wiring. And I warn you, it's a little greasy in here. They spray everything with like a silicone spray. I just do one side at a time. And typically I want to go in front of all these things right here, just like that. Not cutting anything. And there's this large zip tie that's extra gooey. I'll go ahead and slip these pair of wires through the gooey zip tie. This keeps everything like moving nice and smooth. And just route that and check that out. It's just the right length to reach this connection right here. So this is the factory Euro turn signal. It only has 2 connections. We're going to go ahead and pull that right off and then lift this little tab. It's a 3-position connector. Put that back in that little clip there. And just like the rear, use a little knife, or I'm going to just use my nail, pop the lock out. So take a zip tie and through that lower hole, we'll just push and push until that little rubber plug pops out. It's not needed. And you can see the connections that are remaining right here. Kind of route this on the other side of this little thing right here. The black wire is not needed, so you could just put that terminal up in here. It's not going to short against anything. I'll just shove it right into that little the nylon sleeve right there. You could just cut the wire as well. It's not really that critical. But kind of, I think it makes it a little tighter by keeping it, just in case for some reason somebody wants the pods down the road. And we will have to cut this little 3/16 off, and I'm going to cut it right flush with that wire right there. And just like before, I find you could do a really nice wire strip with a sharp knife. Just go all the way around. Obviously there's really nice wire strippers out there too, but that does a really, really nice strip without chopping any of the conductors. All right, just like the rear, I'll quickly go through this. Rubber seal. Make sure none of your filaments of the pins come right through. Straddle the copper with the 2 flag terminals, the 2 flags on the terminal I meant. Fold those flags over. Take a diagonal or something to crimp it down even further. Slide your seal on, and boom, just like that, magic. Make sure the terminal's nice and straight. If needed, you could bend it up a little bit, make it nice and straight. I'm giving it the tug test, not pulling off. If it does tug off, you have another extra pins to try out. So here's the harness that was for the turn signal. So just like the rear one, you got 3 positions. Just go ahead and fill that unoccupied position with the pin. And if you're looking for tips on how to insert it, you might just want to go backwards on the video. And just go ahead and plug that in. Typically I plug the dashboard in. It's not really going to have any errors or anything, but you are able to turn the scooter on. And you can see it does the hyper fast blink. So show how to take care of that problem. All right, so in this little white box is a flasher that's compatible with lower current loads. So a little larger than the original. Go ahead and pull that out. And the electronic flasher is actually located right here next to this main wiring harness. And you can pull it straight up. I'm actually using a needle nose. It's a tiny little module. Too bad it's not compatible with the LEDs. So go ahead and plug this module in. It kind of lines up like such. There's not really much space to get it up in there is what my experience is. I think your best bet is you have this little zip tie right here that's already holding the harness, and take one of the included zip ties. So we'll go ahead and fish that zip tie, the new zip tie, through the existing zip tie. And there's a little rubber already on this. You always want these turn signals to have a little bit of movement just to absorb the vibration. There's just not quite enough room to put that bigger flasher right onto the frame. So just like that, and it's not dropping down into the fork, it's still in a safe spot. Check the turn signal, your steering, because there's some wires that move. They do kind of rub on this, so you might want to turn it in just a little bit. Alternatively, you could zip tie up higher onto the wiring harness. That would work just as well. So let's see how the turn signals flash now. Now they're at the standard rate. So took care of that problem. Pretty much we're going to do a repeat on the right side. So one last zip tie remaining out of the 4 zip ties. You could put it on the left wiring, kind of along with that connection that goes to the USB plug. Trim the tail. We'll button this all up. We'll plug the 2 holes that are remaining on the handlebar cover, and we've pretty much gone full Euro on this scooter here. All right, so time to make all the connections to the glove box. Got this large connector for the optional alarm. Got your mechanical seat opener right there. We'll push that in. We're gonna move on to the inside. And you have the USB connection, which will hold the wire right there, all nice. Give them a lot of credit. They did improve how these are laid out. And the last connection, carefully almost close the glove box, and we'll make that. Important thing, see this little tag right here? If it's like that, the glove box will never open. But fortunately, you flip it down, make sure it stays down, just like that. And we'll double check the operation before we close that glove box. So, made the connection for the seat pop. I'm also using my hand to kind of support that fuse block, because we're going to want to put that into the hole. That goes. Just like that. I'll kind of just set it aside. Then I'm going to carefully lift the whole glove box up. And I'm eyeballing these connections, these points where the glove box fits in. And then I'm going to hold this little latch right down here for the glove box. So I lift it up, make sure it's on top of these 2 little pegs right there. And a couple technical taps. I do have this rag stuck between, not a big deal. Couple and it all should snap right in. Before we go any further, put the key in. I don't even want to think about closing the glove box, and push this. Make sure that little tab is going open and close right there. We'll start with the longer step screws. This one, you'll kind of fish your way right through that hole right there. Onto the right side. Again, two ways to go about this. You could put a little thick grease on the tip of the Torx screwdriver and hold the screw. I'm choosing the more difficult route, which is kind of hold the screw, make sure it doesn't drop down into the body. There we go. Get it started. Don't push too hard because you will damage the clips that they thread into. Starting with these two fasteners because they are the more difficult. Make sure your seams look good. If needed, you can do some more technical taps. Just look at the seam all the way around. So use your fist. Don't be afraid to kind of beat the plastic into place. It's the way all these modern vehicles are. Everything's kind of snapped together. May need some coaxing with your fist. Definitely not a hammer. Could use a soft face one, but getting all these screws in. And this is the problem with using a regular screwdriver, is sometimes you can't get the clearance in here because the door, and I'm actually moving the clip down just ever so slightly. But it is possible, if this is the only tool you have, kind of carefully push the door down just a little bit. It's enough to do it. But you saw the right angle tool that I used to get them off. That was definitely the most efficient means of getting these screws in or off. The nice thing about a hand tool, though, I have a feel for it. I'm not going to use that power driver and just hammer these screws back home. Get a nice feel for how tight it's going to go. And there you go. Got the glove box all together. Put that fuse block. I pulled it past, and then it snaps in this direction, just like that. The little shield cover, these little bit longer screws, they thread into some nice little plastic replaceable little parts, not into the actual plastic of the glove box, which is nice. Rubber plug, you could put a small amount of silicone grease on there if you want to go in a little easier, come out easier. Only reason it's there is to access that screw. And then this little pocket right here, just like this, snaps into place. There we go. So kind of got it snapped in from the left first. These pair of screws, of course the door is in the way here. Double check that latch one more time. Close it up. Yep, it's working perfect. So the last thing, I know the video is not going to illustrate it very well because it's in this dark little crevice. Everybody forgets these. My techs have in the past. Get the little barrel into the emergency lever because you may not ever need this, but when you do need it, you do want it to work. So it takes a little bit of work. So now just make sure you don't overextend this little lever because it is pretty fragile, the spring. And you could do a little test, pops the seat, heard the seat click, pop open, and now we're done in the glove box. All right, so handlebar covers, of course, connect the nice single connector for the speedometer. Much nicer than some of those older setups that have a lot of different connectors that were fragile. They just have one big connector. Snap the handlebar covers all back together. And the order that these screws go back in, you have the longest screw, and that goes in the rearmost position. So you kind of have to, feel your way around until it protrudes. And the way these screws work, you go backwards a little bit and then start turning. You kind of feel it click in because you don't want to cut new threads every time you send these screws home. Now the medium length screw that kind of has a larger head. I'll attack this from the front of the scooter. And again, kind of go backwards and then thread in. For some reason, this one is always just a little more work. Go ahead and do the same for the left side. And then the headlight rim, it's got a single snap in the center and then the 2 screws that hold it. So pretty much just snap it in place, just like that. Put the 2 really short screws in that hold the headlight rim in place. And with this model, I'll put the 2 mirror hole plugs. Since it's got those pretty sharp looking bar end mirrors. All right, so we have the kit all installed. We know it works. There's these pair of holes that are left behind. Included is these little hole plugs. If you really want to take it to the next level, you can get the Scooter West touch-up paint for your scooter color and paint these little plugs. They actually are textured so they accept paint really well. So the small plug snaps into, of course, the small hole. They will stay in on their own. You're also welcome to put a little bit of glue if you want to hold them in place. Got the small one in, and then the medium one. If it's dropping out, you put a little tape around it or put a little glue on it just to keep it there, but kind of fills in the holes. And now we've installed this whole kit. We've got the beautiful, proper European turn signals on a 2025 or later Primaveras. All right, well, thanks for watching. Robot here, signing out from scooterwest.com and Vespa Motorsport here in the mountains.